Hi, folks. I think we are about ready to get this webinar started. Let me just make sure I'm recording this webinar locally on my computer so that we have a recording to send to you guys. But once we have that out of the way, we can get this session started. That's our cue to start. So let's get right into it. So welcome everyone to this webinar where we explore how one of our customers, the state of Indiana, cut their annual customer service costs by $200,000 using chatbots. This is a particularly exciting webinar because unlike in our other webinars where we just demonstrate a use case to you guys or a particular feature to you guys, we're actually talking about how those use cases and features that we talk about in our other webinars, accidentally hit my screen over there, how those use cases and features that we talk about in other webinars are actually brought together by the DARS team and by our customers together to create actual value for the customer. In this case, $200,000 worth of value. So when we're talking about the use case in this webinar, keep in the back of your mind that this is an actual use case, an actual live deployment, which we will explore. We'll actually take a look at the live deployment in the session that we are talking about, and it's actually out there generating value as we speak. But we have a lot to cover in the next hour, so let's get this webinar going. As always, we like to start our webinars off with introductions, just so that you guys know who we are, and you know where our knowledge is coming from, where our expertise is coming from. As always, I'm the host of these webinars. I'm a content marketer over here at DARS. My name's Arnav, if that wasn't evident from the landing page where you signed up for the webinar. But my name's Arnav. I'm a content marketer here at DARS. And essentially what my job is to create content just like this webinar to help you get the most out of your customer experience, out of your citizen experience, out of your customer service experiences. As a company, we've been around since about 2016. And in that time, we've helped everyone from small businesses to large multinational corporations to even state and local governments improve the way that they engage with their stakeholders. In the case of state and local government, what we do is we help them scale their services and customer support so that they actually meet the demands of citizens. Because all too often what we find is that state and local governments are, we'll explore it in this webinar, but they are expected to provide customer service for the dozens of services that they offer. And it's often impossible or unfeasible to do it through just a website or just a call center. So that's where we come in with our chatbots, and we sort of give state and local governments the tools that they need to to get a handle on those customer service queries, so that they are actually delivering on the customer experience that their citizens expect from them. I'm going to see if I can try to turn off my notifications for the rest of the session, so that my Slack doesn't keep going off while we are moving forward with these slides. I think that should do it. I'm relatively new to the Mac, so I'm not sure how to make the notifications go away. I think that should do it though. But yeah, that's who we are as a company. That's where our expertise comes from. That's where the knowledge in this webinar comes from. And that's actually that expertise, that knowledge is coming from use cases like the Indiana InBiz use case, which we are talking about today. Now, in today's session, we've broken it down into 4 parts. There's actually 5 parts. So I'll get to the 5th part later. It's a pretty standard part, but there are four parts where we are going to discuss actual content in this webinar. In the first part, I'm just going to give you some brief context about who InBiz is. So today we're talking about how the state of Indiana, in their InBiz initiative, was able to save $200,000 per year in customer service costs. Well, before we can talk about their use case, how they use chatbots, you need to understand who InBiz is. Because if you don't understand who InBiz is, you don't understand who their stakeholders are, who they are interacting with on a day-to-day basis, who they are serving on a day-to-day basis. It's very hard for you to understand the value generation from the chatbot. So once we have that out of the way in section 1, we'll go through that really quickly just so that we're all on the same page. We can talk about the problem that we are trying to solve in this webinar, or the problem that we were trying to solve for InBiz using chatbots, and that's slow customer service. It's a problem that is all too common in the state and local government space. Actually, not even the state and local government space, even the federal government. Pretty much all levels of government that you interact with suffers from this problem of slow customer service. And we'll detail exactly what that looked like for InBiz. I'm sure it'll be a very familiar picture for any people out there watching this who work in any other branch of state or local government, whether you work in a city, a county, at the state level, whether you work in the Secretary of State in business services like InBiz does, or whether you work in any other division, I'm sure the problem that we talk about in section 2 will be relatable to you because it's a problem that we see in all of our conversations with our government customers and prospects. Then in section 3, we are going to talk about the solution. So what the solution looks like, how it's implemented, what the customer journey looks like for citizens who interact with InBiz's chatbot. And we'll actually even jump out of the slides and take a look at InBiz's website so you can actually see what the customer journey looks like. Because at the end of the day, there's only so much I can tell you over a presentation. Nothing really beats out seeing the actual end product in action. I think that'll probably give you the best sense of how the system works and how the system generates value. Finally, in section 4, we're going to back up everything that we spoke about in section 3 with some actual numbers and testimonials, because at the end of the day, I mean, following on from what I just said, there's only so much I can tell you in slides, right? After a point, I'm just expecting you to trust me, but rather than doing that, I could just show you the actual results that InBiz saw. Past just the eye-catching $200,000 saved year on year, so that you guys have a better sense of how the value actually manifests itself on the ground and how that actually affects the employees at InBiz in a positive way, how it helps them do their job better. So a lot to cover in the next hour or so. So I think we should get started. Oh, really quick. Section 5, as I said, which is not listed over here, is pretty standard, just a question and answer session at the end. So if there are any folks out there who have questions for us, we will keep the session open for about 15 minutes at the end to answer your questions. Hold on just a second. My screen just went off, oddly enough. Let me see what's going on. Okay, we are back in business. So a lot to cover in the next hour. Let's get started. So first, let's talk a little bit about who InBiz is, just so that we're all on the same page about what the problem they face is, who they are interacting with, who they're serving. So as I'm sure all of you are aware, running a business is a bureaucratic process. We often think of running a business, if we haven't done it before, as you come up with an awesome idea of a service or a product that you can sell. In the modern day, you create a website for it probably, and then you get customers onto that website, and then business starts. You provide them the service, you provide them the product, they give you the money, and that's the end of it, right? We all lived happily ever after. The business is running, you're selling your product, customers are happy, and that's how a business runs, right? Well, in reality, the process of running an actual business is a technical, bureaucratic process. It's a legal and economic process administered by the government. Everything from registering your business to paying your corporation fees, paying your taxes, to getting licensed. In some industries, some sectors, you have to get particular licenses to operate as a business. What else do you need to do with government? Trademarks, for example. If you want to get a trademark on a particular product that you sell, that is an example of, those are examples of where the process of running a business runs into government bureaucracy. And increasingly, what we're finding is that entrepreneurs need to be effective at navigating government bureaucracy if they want to run their businesses efficiently and, more importantly, legally. Now, Indiana InBiz is a one-stop shop for Indiana business owners to do all of this. So as you might imagine, all of these variety of functions that business owners might need to conduct with the Indiana government falls under the purview of different departments at the Indiana government. And as you might imagine, interacting with all of those different departments, interacting with all of those different divisions individually is a pain because everyone has a different website, everyone has a different set of processes. You have to find different resource pages on each of these government websites, which is always a pain to get what you need done. So what Indiana did was they brought together all of the services that business owners could possibly need to use at the government under one roof. In a collaborative initiative called InBiz. So InBiz is essentially a single online portal that business owners can go to interact with a variety of different departments that they need to interact with to run their businesses properly. So you can see some of those departments up here. The Secretary of State is an obvious one because in most states, the Secretary of State deals with business services. Department of Revenue, another obvious one. I think this is the public, this is the PLA's labor, Small Business Development Center. Regardless of what state you're in, what city you're in, these sorts of departments being involved in the realm of business services is not out of, it is quite plausible. I'm sure it's relatable to you if you do work in business services. But anyways, InBiz brought all of these departments together, all of the services that they provide to business owners under one portal to make it easier for business owners. But as you might imagine, that's not the end of the story. It's not, you just put together all of these services in a portal, business owners can access it easily, and all of your problems are solved. There is still a problem of slow customer service that is common in state and local government. As you might imagine, whenever you create an online resource, and whenever you're administering a highly technical process like running and managing a business, customer service queries are an inevitable part of running an initiative or a program like this. People are going to have questions about everything from the intricacies of business registration. So they have a question about the actual business registration process, what it takes to get a DBA, what the actual process of registering a business looks like if you're a new business owner, to more mundane questions like, how do I use the InBiz portal? How do I reset my password? Things like that. But the point is that InBiz as an outfit is a customer service operation, because just like with every other government initiative, people are going to have questions because most entrepreneurs out there, they are domain experts at what they sell, what the services that they provide at their trade. They are not lawyers, they're not government officials, so they're not familiar with government bureaucracy in the same way that government administrators are. So inevitably, questions arise, no matter how simple you make a portal. And the question that we really are trying to answer today, the question that InBiz was trying to answer when they decided to use chatbots, was what is the best way to answer these questions? And we're talking about the best way to answer these questions. We're talking about what is the most efficient way to answer these questions? How can you respond to all of these questions at scale quickly? Because you're obviously dealing with tens of thousands of business owners in a state the size of Indiana. They each have their own set of questions, and they all want their questions responded to quickly. So how do you hit all of those marks? Now, the old way of doing this was call centers, plain old call centers, a tried and tested method in the realm of government. InBiz had a helpline that business owners who were using the portal could call. And once they were connected to an agent, they could, the agent would guide them in the direction that they needed to be guided. They would point them to the resource that they needed to check out. And that was that. But the issues with call centers were many. And in this webinar, I'm going to focus on three. The first is there's a high turnaround time associated with call centers. The unfortunate reality of running a call center is that because it's dependent on human agents on the back end, you're eventually going to hit a point where the number of queries you're getting far outstrips the number of agents you can hire, because obviously running a human operation doesn't scale at the same rate as your customer support queries do. So what ended up happening for InBiz was that hold times were often longer than the actual calls themselves. So people would wait 5, 10, 15 minutes to get on the phone with someone to ask basic queries that required 30 seconds to get responses to. Now, there were some people obviously who had more complex queries, and for them, it made sense to wait 5, 10, 15 minutes because maybe they need to talk to the representative for 5, 10, 15, even 20 minutes. But for a significant chunk of the people who were calling into this helpline, they had a 30-second query and they were waiting a multiple of that time to get on the phone with someone who could answer it. So this is the first problem that InBiz was facing with their old method of customer service delivery. They had a high turnaround time. The second issue that they faced was cost. It's no secret that call centers are a relatively expensive way of resolving customer service queries. Managing a large-scale human-driven operation where you have actual agents sitting behind phones answering queries is a relatively expensive way of addressing customer service queries. You have to deal with the operational hassles of payroll and HR and having an office. And then a pandemic hits and now people can't go into the call center. So now you need to figure out a way to deliver that same customer service without having maybe an in-person call center. But the point is that addressing every query through a human agent is relatively expensive, especially for that big chunk of queries that we were just talking about, which are 30-second long queries that don't really require much expertise, the basic repetitive queries that don't really require a human touch to respond to. For those complex 15, 20-minute long queries that are specific to the circumstances of individual business owners, yes, you absolutely need a human agent there because only a human being is going to be able to identify and understand the complexity, the nuance of that situation. But for these 30-second long queries that are basic and repetitive, using a call center is overkill. It's like throwing everything in the kitchen sink at a minor problem that could be solved in a much easier and more efficient way. And then that brings us to the third problem. And this is highly related to cost, and that's a lack of 24/7 availability. It's also actually related to the high turnaround time. The issue with call centers is that because they are expensive to operate, because they are dependent on human agents sitting behind the scenes and answering calls, it's very hard to make them available 24/7 by 365. We often talk about the 24/7 part. We don't talk about the 365 part. Human agents are only available during work hours. They're only available not on holidays. But the problem is that business owners run their businesses 24/7 by 365. If you've ever run a business, you know that you're always on the job. Something could go wrong on a holiday where you have a question for a government. Something could go wrong after work hours. Or as we found out from talking to the folks at InBiz, a lot of folks, what they do is they start their business first as a side hustle, in addition to doing their regular day job. So for folks out there who are starting their businesses, who really need really need hand-holding because maybe this is their first time starting a business. They don't know much about the process. For this cohort of business owners who has a day job and they're just starting out in the world of business, they're not as familiar with the processes and they really need that hand-holding. There's no one available for them to talk to because they're busy the whole day doing their day job. They come home to work on their business, to maybe eventually work towards a sense of financial independence through their own entrepreneurship. But there's no one available to help them because the call center is outside of work hours and it's not available. So this was proving to be a significant problem, for a significant point of friction for InBiz in providing customer service to their business owners, to business owners in the state of Indiana. Now, what's the solution to all of this? The solution is chatbots. So in this next section, what we're going to do is we're going to look at how implementing chatbots at the state of Indiana's InBiz initiative actually help them address those three issues that we were talking about. But first, let's get through a few basics. What exactly is a chatbot? What did it look like in InBiz's use case? So what a chatbot is essentially an on-site concierge. So think about when you go to a hotel, there's always someone at the front desk and you can ask that person at the front desk questions. If you travel to somewhere new, the person at the front desk usually knows things you can do in the area, places you can eat, convenience stores you can go to buy basic necessities, toiletries, etc. But they are a resource that points you in the right direction. There's this entire city in front of you. There's this entire town in front of you, which has all of these things available. But as someone who's new to this town, you don't really know where to start. You don't really know where to go. But if you're staying at a hotel, that concierge's job is to guide you in the right direction. Well, the InBiz chatbot served a very similar purpose on the InBiz website. So the InBiz website has all of these resources for all of the possible queries that business owners could have. And the chatbot that InBiz built using the TARS platform, its job was to guide business owners to the right resource in that sort of buffet of resources, so that they could get their questions answered and they could find the exact resource that they need. And the way that people would access this chatbot is, through a widget. So what InBiz did was they deployed a widget to their website. It lives in the bottom left corner of the screen. And people could click on this widget to open up a conversation with this on-site concierge and ask it any questions they have while they are on the InBiz page. And the beauty of the website widget implementation is that it is built in such a way that it can appear on all of InBiz's domain pages. So if wherever you navigate on the InBiz portal, the widget follows you around. So it's an always available on-site concierge. And before we continue with the slides, I think it's worth showing you what this actually looks like. So I have the InBiz page open over here. And you can see there's, like with any government website, there's a bunch of resources that you can access as an Indiana business owner. In fact, I'd say this is definitely one of the better government websites. It almost feels like a website built by a large private sector business who has the resources to hire UX designers and web developers. But this website is a fantastic government website over here, but it's got a lot of resources on it. And what do we see in the bottom left corner over here? We see the InBiz chatbot. Now, I already started a conversation with this chatbot. As you can see over here, I asked it how we can start a business, but I'll show you what the process looks like from scratch. So let's say we ask a different question about starting a business. If you're looking for help, all right. So if you're looking for help or advice on launching a business, we recommend you contact our partner, the ISBDC. What other questions do you have? So let's imagine this conversation is started from scratch. I want to actually, you know what? The refresh button's right here. Why don't we reload the page and see what it looks like if you are a new business owner who's just landed on this page. So we're a business owner. We're someone who's looking to start a business. Maybe we make the best pastries on the face of this planet. We're sick of our day job. We want to make these pastries for a living and sell them to folks in our neighborhood. Cakes. You want to sell cakes to people in your neighborhood. You want to start a bakery. I don't know why that's the first example that came to mind, but let's say you want to start this business. You don't know what the process of starting a business actually looks like. So you come to the InBiz website. There's all of these resources. Where do you begin? But you see there's a widget in the bottom left. So you click on the widget. It starts a conversation for you with this chatbot. The chatbot tells you a little bit about how it is, how it works. You filter down by topic, and then you based on that topic, you can ask specific questions and get your queries resolved. But say you're a new business owner, you haven't even set up an InBiz account, so you don't have an account in the portal. So the chatbot asks you, do you have an InBiz account set up? So let's say, no, I don't have an InBiz account set up. I don't even know what that is. Now the chatbot informs us that before you can move forward, there's not much you can do without an InBiz account. So first step is to set up an InBiz account. Now we already have a tangible first step as a new business owner that we have to do. So we're on this page with all of these resources. We don't know where to start, and the chatbot has given us that starting point: create an InBiz account. So let's say we go off and we create our InBiz account, and now we have an account. So we come back to this conversation. The beauty of this widget is that if I close it, open it, it remembers where I was in the conversation after I navigate around this page, read a little bit more. So I open up this chatbot again, and now I have an account. So I click OK. I have an account now. And now it gives me a bunch of topics that I can ask questions about. So let's say that I want to learn how to start a new business. In this hypothetical, I'm someone who's starting a new business. So now I want to know what the first step is to start a new business. So I hit start a new business, and then the chatbot gives me a couple of resources about what I should do next. So more information about starting a business, go to this page. If you're looking for help or advice on launching a business, go to ISBDC, and it gives me the specific web pages that I need to go to learn more about starting a business, and advice on how to launch a business properly. And of course, InBiz being as good as it is in making web pages, the resources that it's directing us to are fantastic. They are built really well. They provide a good user experience, and it's relatively easy to get information from these pages. But that, in a nutshell, is how this chatbot works. So let's get back to the presentation. We can come back to the chatbot later on as well. So this chatbot is deployed as a website widget that citizens can access from the bottom left corner of InBiz's page. And what makes this chatbot effective at answering questions that customers have is these three factors over here. And what you'll notice is that all three factors, as we discuss them further, address the problems that we were talking about with the call center-based customer service. So what makes chatbots an effective way to address customer service queries, what made them effective for InBiz, is the fact that they address those three problems that we talked about earlier with call center-based customer service, which was high turnaround time, high cost, and lack of 24/7 availability. So let's actually take a look at what each of these three benefits are, because at least concurrence up here seems a little jargony. Maybe you don't know what exactly that means. So let's take a look in detail what these three benefits are, so that you understand how chatbots address the issues of call centers, and then we can take the conversation from there. So when we're talking about concurrence, what we mean is that the chatbot can essentially have infinite conversations at once. It's a piece of software, just like your website is. Your website doesn't have a hold time, right? It's not like if your website is interacting with 5 people and a sixth person clicks on the link to land on your website, it's going to say, sorry, there are 5 people ahead of you in the queue. Please wait before you see the website. Just like that, the chatbot is a piece of software at the end of the day that lives on a server. So it can have infinite conversations at the same time. And what that means is that when citizens choose to use the chatbot as their customer service method, instead of calling a phone number, when you put it front and center and you make it available to citizens, they are getting an instant response to their questions. Even if the chatbot isn't able to fully address the question that a customer has, say they have one of those niche questions that require a human touch to resolve, they're still getting that instant response, and they still feel like someone is responding to them immediately and at least trying to resolve their query. And then for those 30-second queries that we were talking about earlier that are really basic, the chatbot is excelled at answering those. So people are getting instant response to their questions. So the first advantage of using chatbots is that they provide instant response. to your customers. So they address the high turnaround time problem that we faced with call centers. So where on a call center, you're waiting as a business owner 5, 10, 15 minutes to get connected to an agent. With a chatbot, you are being connected directly to that agent. And if you have one of those 30-second queries, literally your entire conversation is waiting for the chatbot to load, which takes a few seconds, and then the 30 seconds it takes to ask your query and then read the response that comes to you. So we've turned a query that otherwise takes maybe, we'll get into the exact numbers. We'll take a query that taken a query that takes otherwise 5 minutes to respond to into a query that takes only 30 seconds to respond to. So we're addressing that first problem associated with call centers. The second advantage that we want to talk about today is that the chatbot was cheap to deploy for InBiz. So, I mean, one way to think about it is, again, a chatbot is a piece of software, right? You build the chatbot flow. You don't have to create several different chatbots to interact with each one of your customers, like you do with a call center where you need one agent can deal with one customer at a time. And if you have more customers coming in and you want to give them instant response, you need more agents over there. With a chatbot, because a single chatbot can handle infinite conversations at once, all you need to do is have one chatbot on your site to interact with over a million people, which is relatively cheap to deploy because you essentially just need one piece of software to handle infinite customer service conversations. And what it also does is the added benefit, this is what we often don't talk about. We think about chatbots and call centers as being at odds with each other. But what I think a better way to think about chatbots in this context, in business use case, for example, is that, like I said, we have these 30-second long queries that are super basic, where it doesn't make sense to wait 5 minutes on hold to get a response to it. And then you have these 15-minute long queries that are complex and actually need a human being, a human touch to respond to, right? Now, as a call center representative, think about it as from the perspective of someone who works at the call center. You are getting queries by the boatload. They're all coming in, and the vast majority of them are these 30-second long or basic repetitive queries. And there's a small but significant subset, maybe 20% of the queries that are these more complex queries. Now, your expertise is really required on the 20% of queries. But if for every one of those 20% of queries, there are 4 or 5 repetitive queries, well, then it's going to take you a long time to get to those queries that actually need your expertise, because you're constantly picking up calls where people are like, how do I reset my password? Where do I start with the business registration process? So the way you can think about chatbots is that they serve as a sort of first net to weed out all of the basic repetitive queries, get those results so they don't hit your call center. That way, the call volume that's coming into your call center is reduced. It reduces the burden on your customer service agents, which reduces attrition, which is something that we have not talked about, because people are not getting overwhelmed. They're not getting overburdened at work, and they're not getting screamed at by people who've been waiting on hold for too long. That reduces your hold time, and it makes it easier for your call center agents to deliver better customer service. So in total, what ends up happening is you reduce your dependence on call centers, particularly to deal with these repetitive queries, and that in turn reduces your overall cost to address queries. So chatbots are relatively cheap to deploy, and they were relatively cheap to deploy for the state of Indiana. The third and final benefit that we see, or maybe not the final, because as you'll see, there is a fourth benefit that we're going to talk about. But the third benefit that InBiz felt by using the chatbot that we just saw is that they were able to extend their customer service availability to that magic 24/7/365 number. Because again, chatbot's a piece of software, it's automated, it doesn't have to sleep, it doesn't celebrate holidays, it's always there on the website. Its sole purpose is to respond to queries. So if a business owner has a question outside of work hours, if a business owner has a question on a holiday, and the call center isn't available, at the very least, the chatbot is available. So InBiz, in a sense, was able to deliver at least some form of customer service to that customer. So if they had one of those 80% of 30-second questions that is very easy to respond to, all of those people, that 80% cohort over there, is at least getting their questions resolved, even if they ask them outside of work hours or on holidays, which is a considerable increase in coverage from just a call center based approach. So that is advantage 3 of the chatbot. But as I mentioned on the previous slide, that's not the final benefit. There is actually more that we need to discuss. Because if you think about it, all of these benefits that I just spoke about, concurrence, the ability to interact with infinite people at once, cost, the ability to interact with infinite people at once by making just one piece of software, and then availability, making information available to people 24/7 by 365. That's all already done by InBiz's website, right? So why do we need a chatbot? Because if you think about it, a website, as I mentioned when we were talking about concurrence, a website can interact with infinite people at once. There's no wait time. Once you set up a website once, that's all you need to do is set up. There's a setup cost, and then after that, the website's up and running. You don't really need to spend any more, or you don't need to spend much more after the website's up. Maybe hosting fees and things like that, but you don't really need to spend much more to maintain the website, so it's relatively cheap. And it's not like you take your website down at 5 p.m. when the workday ends. Your website's up 24/7. It's available on holidays as well. Your website doesn't need to take holidays. So a website addresses all of these issues, right? So why go to all the effort of making this on-site concierge that can address queries? Well, there is actually a 4th advantage to chatbots that makes them particularly special. So chatbots offer all of these 3 benefits that websites already offer, but they have this extra advantage that gives them an edge over websites. So they have all the goodness of websites plus more. And what we're going to talk about in the next couple of slides is that plus more. And specifically, the added benefit of using a chatbot is ease of use. And this is perhaps the biggest point of friction when it comes to interacting with government. If you're a citizen, if you're a business owner, whoever you are as a stakeholder, even employees, honestly, the biggest issue interacting with government websites in particular is ease of use. Like I mentioned earlier, government websites are information dense. You land on InBiz's page, it's very well designed for a government page, extremely well designed for a government page. But at the end of the day, there are still a million different places you can go on the page. And if you are a new business owner, or even if you're not a new business owner and you're just not familiar with government bureaucracy, the first thing that happens when you land on InBiz's page is you think to yourself, where do I start? Where do I go? And often that is where citizens, that is where business owners get stuck. And in business situation, that is where they got stuck. Even though the questions that they had could be answered on the page, if they found the right resource page, if they found the right piece of text on that page. The process of actually finding it, the process of actually navigating to that specific page, to that specific section on that page, was something that most business owners found daunting. It was, I mean, we've all been there before where we've landed on a page. I mean, think about the last time you interacted with the DMV. You want to figure out how to maybe renew your license. Okay, maybe renewing license is a relatively easy one, but say you want to get a motorcycle license or you want to get a commercial license. You have to go through all of the pages. I mean, the DMV is providing service to millions of people in your state. They have pages on the most minute, the most niche conditions that people might face. So say you want to get a commercial, they'll have pages on how you can get a commercial driver's license, how you can get a motorcycle driver's license, how you can get a regular driver's license. And you only want to look at one of those pages, but you have to make your way through all of those pages, read the titles of all of those pages, and then decide yourself which page to go to. InBiz, it's a similar situation. InBiz is providing a bunch of different resources, how to file a trademark. I mean, business owners have to do a bunch of things, right? They want to learn about initiatives that are available to them to help them launch their business. They want to register their business. They want to pay their corporation fees. They want to file a trademark. So finding the specific resource that they need in that mess can be hard. It can be daunting. And what a chatbot does is it provides an escape hatch from that information overload. Because when you think about the way a chatbot interacts with someone, it actually doesn't present you with all of the information in one go. With a website, the design philosophy is, here's all of the information that you could possibly need as a website visitor. Do with it what you will. Look for the information that applies to you and then use that information to get what you need done. With a chatbot, on the other hand, it's more of a back and forth interaction. You land on the chatbot and the chatbot doesn't tell you anything more than you need to know. It says, hey, my name is this, I'm the InBiz chatbot. How can I help you? No information about specific services, no information about all the services that are available. The chatbot takes the user response first, and once it takes the user response, it accordingly shows you a set of quick replies, or it shows you a set of information that you can then respond to again to keep narrowing down the topic to eventually reach the resource that you need. And then once you reach that resource, it provides you with the information associated with it. I mean, if we were to boil this down to a single sentence, it's what we have on the slide over here. The conversational medium, the conversational form factor of interacting with a chatbot over chat makes getting answers essentially as easy as texting a friend. We're all used to texting our friends, our family, over regular texting, over apps like Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, apps like that. And what the InBiz chatbot did, the big jump that it made, was that it made finding resources on the web page as simple as texting a friend, which is something that we all can do. We're all familiar with, even though we might not all be familiar with the exact layout of the InBiz page and where to navigate to find resources. And that made it considerably easier to find the answers that business owners were looking for than if they were going through the process of clicking through links, finding the exact page that they needed to be on, scrolling through that page to find the exact information that they were looking for, which is obviously a more cumbersome process. This is really the killer use case of chatbots. This is really where chatbots shine. They provide customers, they provide citizens, they provide employees with all of the benefits of websites, but they do it in a way that is easier to use for citizens. And so it's more effective in what it sets out to achieve. But rather than just tell you about all of this benefit, I feel like I owe it to you guys to give you some actual proof about how it works. Because I mean, I could end the slide deck over here. I can say, hey, these are the benefits that you're going to see. Trust me on this. Trust me on this. I promise I'm not lying to you, but why do that when we actually have cold hard numbers to back up what we are talking about over here? In InBiz's case, they saw a number of different benefits. The most, I think, eye-catching one that we used in the title was they saw a $200,000 annual customer service cost saving. But I think it's worth looking at what that means in more detail and what that translates to on the ground. So the first benefit that InBiz saw was that as I mentioned, a lot of those 5-minute long queries now took 30 seconds to resolve with the chatbot. Because if you think about it, you call the customer service helpline, you're waiting on hold for maybe 4.5 minutes, and then it takes you 30 seconds to get the query resolved by talking to the person. You're on hold more than you are talking to an actual agent, which is frustrating. It's not really a situation you want to be in. Now, those queries could easily be resolved by the chatbot in 30 seconds because there's no hold time. The chatbot responds immediately. The hold time is out of the way, and all you really are doing as a business owner when you're interacting with the chatbot is getting your question resolved. In terms of business value, for lack of a better term, that InBiz saw, as I mentioned, this is sort of reviewing what we just talked about. They were able to deliver customer service 24/7. While the call center didn't function outside of work hours on holidays, the chatbot did. So there was at least one resource, one agent that business owners could go to if they needed answers outside of work hours to get their queries resolved. Also, like we discussed earlier, wait times reduced for the call center as well, because they weren't dealing with as many of those repetitive queries that tend to inundate call centers, regardless of what government agency you work at. And then finally, of course, the statistic that we used in the title of this webinar, they saw a $200,000 say annual cost savings on their customer service costs, because obviously they're getting fewer calls than they need to resolve through their call center. They're reducing their dependence on the call center, which in turn results in fewer costs or less cost. I mean, $200,000, you can think about it in terms of FTEs. I don't know, depending on the agency, obviously that's going to differ, but that's at least a few FTEs right there. You can do the calculation for your specific agency. And then finally, I think to bring this home, to make it feel more human, I mean, we can look at statistics all we want. This is what the actual folks at InBiz had to say. So Lindsay is the director of SOS IT. Her team is the team that actually worked with us on implementing this chatbot. And they were, I mean, as you can see from her testimonial over here, they were saving an average of 4,000 plus calls a day, and they were able to provide 24/7 by 365 customer service, which is really what government should look like. I find that all too often when citizens are interacting with government, they get frustrated, and it's honestly not on government officials, because government officials they're not necessarily UX designers or web developers. They are domain experts in the actual policies that they are implementing. So it's unfair to expect government agencies to build the shiny websites that citizens expect from maybe businesses who actually have the resources to hire web developers, things like that. Though I will say in InBiz's case, they do have a fantastic website. So whoever made that website, kudos to you. But still, websites in general at a fundamental level are very information dense. Even if you have a well-designed website, it's still a buffet of information that's not always relevant to individual business owners. And adding a chatbot onto it as a on-site concierge sort of completes the experience. And by completing that experience, by delivering that value to citizens, it delivers this business value of reducing the number of calls and providing 24/7 customer service for InBiz. But that's pretty much it for today. I think you guys have a good sense of how InBiz was able to see value using chatbots, how that 200,000 number that we had in our title actually manifested itself on the ground. So what gave rise to that $200,000 number? How do chatbots actually save money? What's the mechanism at play over there? But at this point, I think I'm going to open up the floor to questions. I'll keep the, I think what I'll do is the presentation was, not to pat myself on the back, but the presentation was quite detailed. If you guys do have questions, feel free to type them out in the Q&A section or in the chat. I'll answer them in the rest of the session. But while you guys are thinking of your questions, what I'll do is I'll show you guys our contact details in case you guys want to get in touch with us. If you have questions after the fact, after the presentation, talk about some few logistics. And if we don't have any questions by the end of that, we can end the session and we can all carry on with our days. So if you do want to get in touch with us, details are on your screen right now. You can call us, text us, WhatsApp us on the number that you see at the top of your screen. You can email me personally at my business email ID. That's arnav@hellotars.com. So Arnav at, and then the Tars URL. And then I think the best way to learn more about chatbots, the best way to learn more about how chatbots can help your government agencies, to go to our website, hellotars.com, navigate to our government page, government specific page, and you will learn more about how chatbots can help you achieve a better citizen experience and save on your customer service costs for your agency. Lost my train of thought there for a second. Also, really quick on a logistical note, we will be sending out the recording for this webinar. We will be sending a recording out for this webinar after it's done. It takes a little bit for Zoom to process the recording, but once it's processed, I'm going to make it a point to upload it as soon as I can. And then have it up on our webpage so that you guys can access it. We'll also put up our slide deck on the webpage. So if you want to take a look at this slide deck, share it with people on your team. It's going to be available on our website. If you're watching this on our website after the fact, scroll down, you'll be able to see this entire slide deck. Also, we stream this live on YouTube. So if you go to our YouTube channel right now, go to YouTube, look up Tara's Chatbots, go to our channel. On our channel, you will shortly be able to see the entire recording up for you to share with anyone who you think might find this interesting. It doesn't look like we have any questions now. So I think what we can do is we can end this session a little early. It's about 8 minutes early. Honestly, a lot longer than I expected. I thought we'd be done considerably earlier. But I think we can end this session. Thank you all for joining, and keep a lookout for our